What are the main issues you think the people of Brunswick want action on, and how will you respond if given the chance? You have approximately 2 minutes to respond. Thank you.
Look, I think the people of Brunswick and Victoria are certainly very compassionate and considerate people that want action on a number of things, probably not everything that we'll be able to cover tonight, but obviously key to that is the environment and I think to a lot of people, animals. But unfortunately, the rights of animals and the welfare of animals have been given a back seat by consecutive governments that continue to ignore their plight simply because they can't vote. And that is why our party, the Animal Justice Party, is here to exist, because you can vote on their behalf to get them out of, jumps racing, or to get them out of factory farms where they can't stand forward and turn around, to get them out of wetlands where they're going to be shot by hunters, or to get them out of cruel puppy factories. In terms of the environment and how we, have an influence on that, unfortunately we do have to wait for governments to play catch up with community expectations. I think governments are probably 10 years behind community expectations. But we ourselves can change the planet and change the world while we wait for them to play catch up. For example, the United Nations released a report called Livestock's Long Shadow, saying that more than half of all of the greenhouse gas emissions are attributable to the livestock industry. So if we were to not eat animals, we could do more for the planet than, for example, buying a hybrid car, while we wait for governments to shut down coal-powered stations and stop building, tunnels that are going to put more traffic and pollution on the road. The planet can't currently sustain our eating habits at the moment as we become more affluent and eat more animals. It's simply not sustainable. More than half of the world's grain and crops are fed to fatten up animals so that we can eat them. There's a ratio of about 16 to 1 that it takes 16 kilograms of grain and crops to go in to produce 1 kilogram of beef, which, if you're a business, you'd be losing money every single day. It takes between 50 and 100,000 litres of water to produce 1 kilogram of beef. Let's not wait for the governments to change the world, let's do it ourselves.
I'm Peter Allen. For those who didn't hear earlier, I'm a community independent candidate for the upper house here. And Brunswick people, in my view, have a strong sense of justice and fairness. I think this comes through in a lot of ways, but there's a strong care for low-income households that I see a lot. I'm on the board of a local charity, and through that I've seen the need for much more effort and funding and resources to go into alleviating energy debt. Some households, the average energy debt of people who can't pay their energy bills is now over $2,000. It's totally out of control. We need to be doing more to deal with domestic violence, which is a chronic problem. Low-income people should not be being asked to do the heavy lifting in our society that they have been asked. Brunswick's also very committed to environmental sustainability. Comes through in a lot of ways, and I've been involved in at least 6 community solar initiatives. So we don't wait for recalcitrant governments, we get ahead and we do it. So don't frustrate renewables as a government, favour them. And when Labor's in government, I'll be making sure they don't go down the brown coal export path. They don't go down the coal seam gas route. And if they do, I'll be frustrating their whole agenda. On the other hand, they will know that they had my support for restoring some of the environmental damage that's happened in the last 4 years, including things like the farcical wind farm inhibitor that we have at the moment. I will support an overall progressive agenda, as Brunswick people would want me to do, and also stiffen the back of government when they go soft, as the residents of Brunswick would also want me to do. So when you get that big ballot paper and you scan across the 20 different columns, think of the North, that's N, Group N, Peter Allen. Thanks.
The values of this community, I think, need to be reflected very strongly across this state. And again, to go back to those core themes of education, what's happened with the smashing of TAFE and VCAL and the lowest capital spend in education in decades, I think we can see what Labor's committed here in Brunswick. The $10 million upgrade for Brunswick Secondary College is but one of so many of those across the state, and will allow for upgrade, modernisation, science labs and the like. On a global issue, or statewide issue, $320 million rescue package for TAFE. I was at Princess Hill Secondary College launching the art exhibition last week. I was speaking to the assistant principal who said on a given year, a few years back, there would be at least 10 to 15 students who would go to TAFE and should go to TAFE to fulfil their dreams and create their future. That's dropped to 1 at the most. And we have the same situation with VCAL. The EMA has been slashed by this state Liberal government, which means those who are the most poor can't access assistance to do camps, they can't access assistance to go on excursions, they can't access assistance to get their books. That will be reinstated. And I think that's critical. Locally, the issue of community is so important. We're all here tonight. We're contributing really significantly to upgrade sporting clubs across the community, because that is where so many people spend so much time of their lives, and they deserve all those volunteering hours to be looked after. We won't build the East-West link, and that money will go into public transport, which of course is better not just for people's livability but also for the environment, and that will be hugely significant. Again, the environment has had the worst 4 years I think we've seen in decades at both state and federal level, and that needs to be addressed very significantly. We're going to look after kids with school safety, and locally I've door-knocked so many homes and spoken to so many people. Planning development, that's why Labor will implement those moorland residential zones immediately to protect our community and our low-rise streets from overdevelopment.
So I think the commonly held values in Brunswick include some of the big issues that I've already addressed, dealing with the gap between rich and poor, responding to climate change. But one of the most frequent complaints I've heard campaigning this year has been that public transport in Brunswick hasn't kept up with the pace of apartment development growth in this suburb. So it's clear that we need to buy extra trams. We want the government to buy an additional 50 trams. That's $350 million right there, but they're locally made, and that's creating jobs in Dandenong. We want more than 3 trains an hour, and I reckon we can do it, to run on the Upfield line. We want to increase the frequency of some of the east-west buses, starting with the 504 bus on Brunswick Road, and for it to run later into the evening and connect with the train services. We'd like to fund the council to provide some safer bike routes and get some high-capacity signalling on some of the train routes to allow for increased frequency, and start at least one of the major rail projects that have been promised by various parties. So we'd like to fund some of these public transport initiatives by cancelling the East-West Link contract, regardless of the outcome of the judicial review. We would like to approve the Brunswick Structure Plan, or C134, to set height limits for apartment development, and approve Moreland's zoning plan. And as previously mentioned, we'd like political parties to pledge to not receive donations from property developers. So, we'd like to restore integrity to your parliament so that you know that your MP is representing your values and not those of their donors.
Values of Brunswick. I think Brunswick, I've lived here for 6 years, if you include Coburg, it's Greater Brunswick, which we all do. So I've lived in Brunswick for 6 years, and I feel that the values around me, us, are inclusion, the idea that it doesn't matter where you come from, but you're a valued member of society. I think this particular church itself has had a banner up for a long time saying we love asylum seekers, and that's unfortunately not a value that's echoed by either of the major parties. So if the values of Brunswick were going to be represented, I think then they should be represented not by a major party. I also think that the values small business is crucial. I'm a small businessman. I have a lot of friends who also run small businesses. I think they're all really wonderful, creative people. These days you need to be a very creative person to be a successful small business person, because it's a tough world. You know, where the political spectrum is another example of the microcosm of the struggle between big and small, whether you're thanks, mate. Thank you. All right, the techies here are fantastic. So, whether you're a small toy shop selling toys next to Toys R Us, or whether you're a small independent party with powerful, passionate virtues, your voice just isn't going to get out there because you don't have corporate donors paying for your message to get out there. But we can all help that situation by spreading messages about our values through social media. This might be the election that we have no longer a duopoly when it comes to politics. You know, this election we might actually have real choice in politics, and that makes me happy. I'm happy to be part of it. I actually don't really want to get elected. I'd rather just do my job, but I'd love to see change in government, because we need real things happening, because time's running out. We've got climactic emergency at our doorstep. And just to wrap things up, I think the perfect sentence that wraps up the values for Brunswick and my values is, if your candidate can't deliver a keg to your house on a bicycle, then you should vote for one who can. If you want more information, apply to the
What will I do for Brunswick? Well, there's two major issues with Brunswick, and that is public transport, which is congestion, and the other is safety, as we're aware of. So, as we mentioned, East-West Link twice at this moment. Congestion, East-West Link, yeah, it's a capital cost, but if you put in the East-West Link, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to remove the congestion out of Brunswick. As soon as you do that, you have more trams, you have more efficiency. Well, you would. You'll have less cars on the road. You can have more trams running more regular. Same with the train system. As soon as you start to put things underground and Warden Road underpass, you start to have less boom gaps. You can run more services. So they're the areas that I'll be focusing on, just so we can. And I understand we need more trams, and we're looking at that. But to have more trams, you can't put more trams in a row. That's always a deadlock. So. That's the major issue, is to free up the congestion, to work with getting things moving. Now the second point was safety, of course, and of course that's everybody wants to feel safe in the sense of females and so forth, and getting the CCTV cameras. So I'll be a voice for that, and to ensure that safety is in our community. I've got a Power Buddy band, so when I see something that's out of the ordinary, I will speak up and say, no, that's not safe, you should look this way, you should look that way. So I'm advocate for that. Same when I'm at train stations and I see bike paths flying past, I say something, hey, you're going too fast. So they're the two major areas that I would speak up for the community, for the City of Brunswick.